You are about to embark upon the great crusade to which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with brave allies and brothers in arms on all the fronts, you will bring about destruction of the waifu war machine, the elimination of horny tyranny over the oppressed peoples of the world, and security for ourselves in a free world.
Azur Lane started life as a Chinese-made, side-scrolling shoot-'em-up with gacha mechanics. It features various ships from World War II as anime waifus. Azur Lane Crosswave is fundamentally the same, albeit a three-dimensional paid game with walls and walls of visual novel text. Look, I'm sorry, I didn't pay any attention to the story at all. If I was to read everything here, then I definitely would have spent significantly more time reading than actually playing the game. Basically, the ships are getting together for some type of festival before they're interrupted by other strange ships, which they then have to fight. Visually, the game is solid. Character design and art style are really good. They even did a fairly good job transitioning the drawings into the third dimension. Enemy ships are reasonably cartoony, and yet fit well in the environments. All the maps are basically identical, just set at different times of the day, or have slightly different pieces of land on the horizon. I actually dig how the water looks. Even though it isn't super hyper-realistic, it is nice to see it react to your ship and the rounds that you fire. The music is okay, but doesn't feel like anything more than standard anime fare. I also appreciate that they did take the time to voice work the mountains and mountains of dialogue in the VN moments. I also really dig the gameplay. Building fleets and experimenting with weapons is fun. Movement feels really good. Even the heavier ships can glide along reasonably well, and can dodge pretty decently. And if anyone is wondering if these ships actually feel similar to real life, well, I think they did a fair job. Remember that these ships are based on real life counterparts and before guided munitions. As an example, the Sakura Empire carrier waifus were pulling off these maneuvers at the Battle of Midway. I did the math and discovered that the Soryu's turning radius is only 570 meters, or almost 2¼ ship lengths, which is surprisingly tight. For comparison, if the USS Ronald Reagan from 2003 maintained the same turning ratio, its turning radius would be a staggering 832 meters. While all 4 carriers and 1 heavy cruiser were sunk in the battle, it was a difficult task, and I think this game does a fair job of capturing that specific element, at least if you're playing as or against one of the waifus. Azur Lane Crosswave surprisingly doesn't too bad with its accessibility either. While the spoken dialogue is in Japanese and the written is in English, there's no in-game way to change the language. Both keyboard and controller buttons are fully remappable, which is honestly pretty cool. There's also 3 different difficulty settings. I played on medium and found it pretty easy, so I think that most players could complete it as is. However, it does suffer a little bit when it comes to convenience. While I failed to find any bugs, it is only available for the PlayStation 4 and Switch, as well as being available digitally on Steam. Where it suffers most is its shockingly bare-bones settings options, and while it doesn't pose problems immediately on current hardware, games with similar disregard often become hard to run as they age. But I personally had a lot of fun with this game, but I can see that there are elements that will deter players. I already talked about the visual novel aspects, but there are also decent chunks of grinding that you have to do for parts, or to increase your relationship levels with ships. You can even marry ships, and before you ask, no, there is no consummation scene or nudity. This isn't a hentai game. But overall, I don't think I could recommend this game to most people, earning an avoid. While its fundamentals may make it the best game, in the avoid category, it still feels a bit like a free-to-play, and just feels a little bit too bloated in some of the grinding text aspects. But let me know what you think down in the comments below, check out my last video on Borderlands 2, and consider subscribing. Until then, this has been Rob the Slob, and I'll see you in the virtual commute.